All right. Hey, everybody. This is Dominic D'Angelo of adfreeshows.com. Today's date is June 20th, 2023. And wow, I can't believe it. This is so I never interviewed an Impact World Champion before until Steve Macklin. And he was the last interview I did. And now I'm interviewing the new Impact World Champion, another than Alex Shelley. Alex, thank you for joining me, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So obviously you're so synonymous with Impact and TNA and the history of all that. How's it like, just as a generalization, how's it just feel to be like the champion finally and kind of have that added to your already like impressive resume when it comes to your wrestling career?
It feels good. At the same time, it doesn't feel all that different. Like, I don't think I'm going to do anything differently, if that makes sense, aside from maybe more interviews, but nothing changes in terms of my thought process. Like, I still work the same way I would have before I became world champion.
Yeah, and just kind of going off of that and seeing it. I just saw too also the Summer Sizzler, or yeah, the Impact Summer Sizzler is coming on June 23rd, so this weekend coming up in Atlanta, and you have a challenger in Brian Myers, and he kind of issued a little bit of a statement going on, and I wanted to combine that with another one. He says, "Oh wow, I knew Impact Wrestling was going to have a hot shot the belt to me in order to save future ratings and ticket sales. Makes sense to you in Atlanta. Alex Shelley, bring the camcorder and tripod." And then on top of that, Nick Aldis, in an upcoming interview with WrestleZone, he says, "I hate to use the phrase transitional champ, but oops, here we go. This will be the ultimate test whether this will prove Macklin was off his game and Alex Shelley did happen to be at the right place at the right time. Because if he beats me, then his world title reign is solidified as legitimate." Well, kind of going off of what you were saying too, is like not changing your style or anything like that, or your game plan. Do you feel any like added pressure of like, hey, I don't want that identity of a transitional champion or anything like that? Where's your mindset go with that?
Yeah, certainly nobody wants to lose the belt in their first defense, right? Nobody wants that. The advantage I have is that outside of maybe Speedball Mike Bailey, I wrestled the most out of anybody on the Impact roster. And because of that, I'm constantly in ring shape. I'm constantly thinking the way a wrestler would before a match because I work 10 to 12 matches a month. I don't get rusty, right? Like my mind is always turned on. So you never lose it because you never have a chance to lose it. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, constantly ready. But yeah, it would be a bummer, man, to lose my belt to Nick Aldis, like first defense. Of course, he's absolutely right there. And Brian is too. Like if I lost it to him first, and that's him against Nick at Slammiversary, I imagine. But that's what being a champion is. Like, yeah, you knew it was going to be hard when you got into the wrestling business in the first place, but you got into the wrestling business to become world champion also. So I asked for this. I want this. Like I thrive on that. I have no issues with that. I enjoy grinding. This is fine for me.
Yeah, it's just another day at the office, basically.
Exactly.
And the kind of thing is you do like you could lose there's always the potential to lose, but you've never been in this position before, so it's like anything that you're doing is you're kind of gaining.
Yeah. No, if you can beat me. Like please do, by all means. But at the same time, like I want the test. Like I want the pressure. That doesn't bother me. I enjoy that. Like that excites me more than it intimidates me. So bring it on. Yeah, no big deal.
100%, man, 100%. So I happen to work with Kevin Nash on the Click This podcast, and he always has high praise for you. Like anytime your name gets brought up or anything like that. What is some of the major things that you kind of learned from Kevin, like moving on with your career and developing?
Like I learned from Kevin in life, not just wrestling, because I was with the guy for over a year, like a lot too, at Impact and then outside the ring as well. And basically, if I had to like really just encapsulate a few of the lessons I got from him, I remember him telling me, "You're most powerful when you don't care." And right. I hate to say it this way. It's not that I don't care about losing the belt. It's that I know that one day I will lose the belt, right? So I don't care what anybody says about it. Like, that's why I have the attitude I do going into these matches coming up. Like, if you can beat me, beat me. Fine. I'm still going to do things my way. I understood working with Kevin too, that there is something sublime about wrestling as far as connecting with the audience. The audience sees through a lot of bullshit. If something isn't authentic, and usually that's the case of the wrestlers themselves, trying to do something that doesn't come naturally to them, whether that's emotionally or physically, the fans will catch on and that'll rattle the wrestlers too. So he said the best way to be successful is honestly go out there and entertain yourself. Do what comes naturally to you. Do what you think is going to be cool or different or interesting or easy or fun. If you can do those things, then it parlays with success. And I do agree with that completely. I mean, there's way more lessons in that, but those two I thought were quite paramount.
Well, how long did it kind of get to that point too, where you could kind of have that mentality when you go to the ring, like just fighting through any kind of nerves or anything like that, or did that kind of come to you naturally in a lot of ways?
It kind of came to me naturally. It came to me more naturally when I was around him and he told me that though, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, so this is right. So I do feel this way, but then this is confirmation from somebody that I watched growing up and I loved as a kid, as a fan, and then respected when I got into the industry and now look to as a mentor, telling me that, no, you're right. This is the way we do it. This is how you should do it. This is how the clique did it. And he wasn't the only clique member to mentor me either, right? Like I was with Sean for a bit too, but these guys thought of wrestling differently. And I mean, they instilled a certain type of work ethic in me too. I remember Kevin telling me once, when you're traveling, you've got a couple options in front of you after a match. Sometimes it's going to be, do you sleep or do you go to the gym? And like recovery is important, certainly for your biophysical, but that's why I wake up at like 2 a.m. sometimes on travel days to work out. And like, you can ask other wrestlers about that. That's a real thing. You get these lessons from the previous generation that was successful, and then you apply them to yourself. So it contributes to my attitude in how I answer these questions about matches coming up, but it doesn't mean that I don't consider them important. I very much do. I'm just a realist about the entire situation.
Right. And like, yeah, don't put any expectation. Like you always, yeah, you hope for the best, expect the worst
Right,
sometimes. And just,
right.
that's the way you go about things. And it's like, whatever happens, kind of happens.
That's it, dude. I mean, you
Mhm.
don't control as much as you think. You really don't.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did you and Kev share in common outside of wrestling?
Oh man, so he actually at the time he went to the same high school as my girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
He's from Detroit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mhm.
I think that lended itself to it right away. He was a bouncer at a place called Harpo's, where GCW runs now, that I used to go see concerts at. I mean, not at the same time, but still, like we just knew the same landmarks, the same areas, had seen some of the same bands. Both had parents who worked in automotive. Like that's not abnormal in this area, but like it was just a similar type of upbringing, right? Like you just came up in the same area with a lot of the same sociological influences and norms. And because of that, you develop into these people. But certainly, if you had been raised somewhere else, it would have been totally different.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it's kind of neat. You can have that connection already. And and then you get to meet the person and get to know them a little bit better too. It's you certainly build relationships that way. And yeah, it definitely helps in the ring too, I'm sure.
That does, yeah.
Hmm. Another big man, so that has been talked about in the past couple of days here is Moose. He announced that he resigned with Impact Wrestling, and he says he's signed the longest deal in company history. Talk about what you think of Moose's ceiling, how much he can do still in Impact, and how much he can kind of be in the business.
I think how long somebody could be in the business is variable because you could be crossing the street, get hit by a car, and then that's it, right?
Right.
Right. So I never really like to give those answers, in part because I just don't want to jinx anybody. As far as his ceiling goes, I think he's done pretty much everything there is to do in the company. So if he wants to be a staple, if he wants to be one of the pillars, then that's a different story altogether. That does take time. So there's winning championships, that's in one bucket, but then there's consistency throughout the years. So you look at somebody like Moose versus, say, Chris Sabin, and Chris Sabin's done everything, but he's also just done everything really, really, really well for a very, very long time, too.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Moose has to do going forward. If he really wants to be considered one of the faces of Impact Wrestling, and he really wants to raise the company to new heights. And part of it is bringing up those around you. That's what like a good leader will do, right? Like they bring everybody up, not just themselves. I mean, of course, that happens in the process too, but through osmosis, everybody in the vicinity is now operating at a higher level. So I imagine that's what he would want.
Yeah, and he mentioned on Twitter in his message too, like he wants everybody associates Impact with Kurt Angle and AJ Styles, and he wants to be in that realm of people.
Right,
So
right. That's what he's got to do. I mean, it's consistency over time now.
yeah, very much so. So I think we have a lot of music things in common in certain ways. I remember we were backstage in Philadelphia, and I knew you were a Strokes fan, and I'm a huge Strokes fan as well. Do you have a favorite album of theirs?
Oh, the first one. I mean,
Yes.
I think most people would say that. I mean, it was the right album, right time. I remember hearing that they actually used the same recording equipment that the Stooges did on 1969. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, the fact that that's even a rumor, I thought was pretty awesome. And, Stooges are from Detroit. 1969 is my favorite album. But like, the first album was just so good for what it was. And then after that, going forward, of course, they had some really, really great songs too. But gosh, they've probably got at least 6 albums at this point, if not more. And then Julian Casablancas solo
His
stuff.
solo stuff's really good.
Yeah, Albert Hammond Jr. solo stuff. And yeah, so
Mhm.
there's a lot out there now.
Oh, there definitely is. Yeah, no, I like their latest one. The new Abnormal is great. I think it was like very good tie into like their older feel of stuff, but like it's moving forward and stuff. And then Calm Down Machine I like a lot. So there's a lot to choose from with the Strokes, no doubt. So I happen to see too your new T-shirt that's out, the Dookie kind of take on thing.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of neat Easter eggs in that, I think.
Oh man. So there were 2 albums that made me want to learn to play guitar when I was a kid. Nirvana Unplugged in New York and Dookie.
Yeah.
I just thought both those albums were just so cool. I didn't know that half of Unplugged in New York was covers, but whatever. That doesn't take away from it. But when I was looking for shirt designs, I mean, part of it again is entertaining yourself. And I thought, oh, this would be kind of neat. I wonder how many obscure references I can put in there that people would even figure out. And I don't know how many, like, there's a lot of people who have bought the shirt and come up to me like, hey, I got your shirt. Like, oh, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate you spending money on me. And they're like, yeah, I love Green Day. I'm like, okay, cool. Not too many people, like maybe only 2 or 3 have actually said, I love all the references to all the other wrestlers. But look at the artwork on it. There's a ton of references to other people in there, including Kevin Nash.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that one.
Yeah, there's Jay White, there's Young Bucks, there's Gresham. I mean, there's a bunch of like small little Easter eggs in there if you really look closely.
Yeah, it's very neat. I was like, when I saw the Dookie, I was like, oh, he's had to put some references in here.
Yeah. But what a nice
it was good. So what I think is really neat too is that you're also very into physical therapy. You have a degree, correct, in it and everything like that as well.
medical.
Yes, because congratulations on that. And I kind of wanted to get your perspective on how do you find the balance in today's modern wrestling? When everybody's doing all these like wild moves and certain things like that. How do you find the balance of like kind of being safe? And what would you kind of tell like a newer wrestler that's kind of very much in the now generation of things of how to handle themselves a little bit?
Right.
More?
That's a really good question. When I was a teenager, wrestlers were by and large like peaked athletically by 40. That like non-negotiable. Nowadays, and let's look outside wrestling. Let's look at sports on the whole. But you see somebody like Tom Brady, like still playing professional football in his late 40s at a pro level, right? Like it's unheard of, setting records at 45. Society on the whole has gone into a period of like high level athleticism and longevity that's been blended. Wrestling, though, is its own thing. And as much as wrestling is sport, it's also art. So I would never tell somebody to wrestle a certain way because that's theirs, right? That is their prerogative and that's intimate and private to them, man. Like how you want to do that, that's your call. And quite frankly, I'm of the belief that anybody should be able to do anything to their body as long as it's not hurting anybody else, if it affects nobody else. That stated, there's ways to bulletproof yourself regardless of how you're going to wrestle too.
Mhm.
And if I really had to kind of pinpoint a few things that people could do, younger wrestlers could do, it would be learn how to land properly. So go through some jump training. Make sure you train your legs. Make sure you train the muscles on the backside of your body, and strength and conditioning, or PT, we call that the posterior chain. So there's so many wrestlers I have met, and myself included, because I didn't train properly when I was younger, who didn't do a deadlift until way too late. And if they had been doing those all along, they would have strengthened so many muscles on the backside of their body and their spinal cord that they really probably would have avoided a lot of injuries. And you see it now more frequently, but you have a lot of people in my generation who have gotten cervical fusions, and
Yeah.
that's herniates so badly that it's impinging on a nerve. It doesn't scar up and get off the nerve. It's continuously abutting up against it. So they have to go in, chip away the tissue, and then stilt it. So they make a platform with metal in there to take the pressure off. And that's really young, like for guys in their 30s to be getting this. You got to look at like why that's happening too. And part of that could have been preventative, but again, you only control so many things in life. So if you can really, really learn how to bulletproof your knees with some jump training, if you can really strengthen the muscles on the backside of your body with posterior chain strengthening, if you can really go deep with like aerobic and anaerobic conditioning, which is paying attention to your heart zone, getting a monitor while you train and understanding that, then you would really do yourself a huge, huge favor. And the best part about it is the information is all widely available. You do have to look for it. You do have to learn it. You have to put some energy in educating yourself, but it's all out there.
Yeah.
And, you can't beat that, because when I was starting out, none of this shit was readily accessible.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of wrestlers appreciate having you backstage too to get that input and everything like that. So
Yeah, and it's like there's usually not much you can do backstage, like if somebody gets hurt. But when it comes to strength and conditioning, a lot of people do come to me for answers, and I'm happy to have them, because I continuously, every day, I learn something about that, and physical therapy. So I love that stuff. That's a passion of mine. So I'm happy to like try and give them the best answer that I have to them. And if I don't know it, I can at least point them in the direction of somebody who does.
absolutely. Well, cool, man. It's been awesome. It's ever since I tuned into TNA way back when, you were my guy. So it's been cool to follow you around and see how you're doing. And I loved all the relationships you form with people and your demeanor, everything. So, and congratulations on the Impact World Championship, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how you do and everything.
Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. All right, guys, we'll see you here next time on adfreeshows.com.